Okay, I think maybe we can start right now. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's roundtable session. The topic of this roundtable is economic census. My name is Zhenye Zuo. I am an assistant planner here at the Modeling and Forecasting Department at SCAG, and I will be the facilitator today for this session. And you can enter your questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we will answer them after the presentation. Let me give you an introduction to today's presenter, Mr. Amory Wooden. Mr. Wooden joined the U.S. Census Bureau Foreign Trade Division in 1997 and is currently the Assistant Division Chief for Data User and Respondent Outreach in the Economic Management Division. Mr. Wooden oversees the outreach, marketing, and training related to economic statistics, the foreign trade regulations, the automated export system, and the Census Business Builder. In addition, he is responsible for the maintenance of the foreign trade regulations, which includes revisions, interpretation, and coordination with other agencies such as Customs and Border Protection, Bureau of Industry and Security, and the State Department. And let's welcome Mr. Wooden to give his presentation.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. Can you hear me? Can you just give me a thumbs up? All right, excellent. Thank you for the introduction. As stated, my name is Omari Wooden. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau. I oversee a lot of the outreach and training as it comes from the economic side of the house at the U.S. Census Bureau. So today what I'll be discussing, and I'll share my screen now so you all can see my slides. Okay, so what I'll be discussing today, as the topic stated, the economic census, but more broadly, that will be the introduction of one of the main programs that we have, one of the main surveys that we have at the U.S. Census Bureau. I'll provide an update, a timeline on the content of the economic census, but then I'll also provide an overview of many of the other tools that we have, other resources, surveys, programs that we have from the economic component of the U.S. Census Bureau to, again, raise that awareness. And then I'll also talk about some tools that you all can use in your communities that I think you will probably find very useful. So that's what I'll be discussing today. I'll be discussing data, tools, and products. I'll even talk about international trade, one of the interesting areas or surveys that we release from the U.S. Census Bureau that a lot of people think comes from International Trade Administration, anyone else other than the Census Bureau. So I'll talk about that. Then I'll talk about some of the data equity tools that I had just mentioned that are, again, all available for use. So at the Census Bureau, we are the largest statistical agency in the United States. We conduct more than 130 surveys and programs every year, including 3 censuses. We are obviously most notably known for the decennial census. So a lot of times when we're out conducting training and outreach, a lot of times people at a conference will ask us, oh, you're with Census. Tell me how many people live in the state of California. Oh, you're here at Census. Are you here to count the number of people here in the building? So one of the things that I always like to say is we do more than just count people. We measure the economy, people, and places of the United States. So in addition to the decennial census, there are 2 more censuses that we conduct from the economic area of the Census Bureau that occur every 5 years. First is the Census of Government, which provides a measurement of the nation's state and local government sectors, including employment, financing, and much more. And then lastly, what I will be focusing on is the economic census, which is a measure of the nation's economy on every 5-year period. Now, the way to best look at economic programs are to look at them based on timing. And the way to think about it is more like a pyramid, as we see here on the screen. So at the top are what we would like to consider our high frequency data. So again, when we compare back to the decennial, when we're talking about every 10 years, and again, people will say, oh, well, what do you do the other 9.5 years when you're not counting people? Well, I say we're releasing content in some cases on a weekly and a bi-weekly basis. Those are related to our high frequency surveys. Most recently, we released the Small Business Pulse Survey, which was a measurement of the impact of the COVID pandemic on small businesses. As we begin to come down the pyramid, we start to look at our monthly and quarterly data. This data provides the most timely information that is, as it is more of a snapshot of the economy over across a wide range of sectors, including retail, wholesale trade, building, construction, services, manufacturing, international trade. So again, we provide a much greater level of detail, but again, it is a snapshot because it is coming out at a monthly and a quarterly basis. Then we look to our annual programs that continue to measure these elements of the economy, but now the sample is larger. So now you begin to see trend data. Now, and more importantly, this data also becomes available now at the national level, whereas many of our monthly data is just at the national level. This information for our annual data, now you'll be able to get into more geographies, such as down to the county level, into different metro type areas. So again, you start to see a greater level of detail as we're starting to come down the pyramid. And then lastly, we've got our economic census, which is the most comprehensive data available. Again, this is conducted every 5 years, and I'll talk more about this on the next slide. And then sitting on top of all of this information that we collect is our administrative data from the business register. And we use this information to supplement and produce economic data products. So the economic census, again, it is a census that is conducted every 5 years. It is the official measure of the nation's businesses and economy every 5 years, ending in years 2 and 7. So we're talking about the economic census for 2022. Now it's called the economic census for 2022 because we're taking a measure of these businesses at the end of 2022. And we will be doing the same thing for year 2027. So the economic census provides us a benchmark for other economic surveys, and it acts as a cornerstone for the nation's economic statistics. It provides key data sources for the gross domestic product, national income, product accounts, the producer price index, and other indicators of economic performance. It offers information on business locations, workforce, trillions of dollars of sales by product and by service type. What's interesting with the economic census is businesses are required by law to respond, and all the data that we collect are completely confidential. We only use it for statistical purposes. And also, too, we don't release any information that would reveal or identify any individual businesses or private industries. The upcoming economic census that we'll gather again at the end of 2022 will close with about 8.2 million business employer establishments, with approximately 4.2 coming from direct data collection, and then administrative records being used to supplement the remainder. Again, all the information we compile will be available, and it is free of charge and is all published on the Census Bureau's website. So now let's talk about what some of the content that we receive, or some of the newer content that we're looking to capture in this particular economic census. One, we're expanding the information that we capture on the agricultural industry. So we are expanding our information into support activities for crop production, and then support activities for animal productions as well. As you see on the slide, some of the topics we'll also be expanding into are newer types of business technologies. Export and import of services are incorporated as well. We've seen the expansion of teledyne medicine, so we're looking to incorporate that as well. And also the different types of businesses. And as that is expanding, one of the industries we're looking into is the cannabis industry. We're also looking at different types of products, so newer products that have occurred since the 2017 economic census, such as the cannabis industry, electric vehicles, cryptocurrency, and remanufacturing. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to incorporate, as we see there is a changing economy, we want to make sure that we're measuring those things that are changing in our economy. Now, just to give you a sense of the timeline for the economic census, right now we're working on our outreach preparation as it relates to getting the responding communities prepared as we're raising awareness for content that will be coming out. So again, there are approximately 30 million businesses in the United States. Number one, of that number, there are probably about 8 million employer businesses. And then of that number, there's a smaller subset that we're going to be sending out information for them to respond. So not all businesses will be included in the economic census as we normally see with the decennial census. So not every business will receive this, but of course, if someone does receive this, we want to make sure that they're responding. And I'll talk about some of the data products that even come out of the economic census. So right now we're working on that outreach preparation now. We're drafting material, again, and getting the response community ready. In January is when the mail out will start with a due date in March of 2023. Once we've received that information and then start the compilation of all this data, the first release of economic census data will be targeted for March 2024, and then all of the data will be completed by 2026. One of the nice features with this economic census that is being released, in years past, we used to release the economic data or the geographic series based on different regions of the country. So let's say we would come out with California and let's say Nevada, and then we would come out with Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. And then another week we would come out with Maine, New Hampshire. So we were releasing the information in phases based on different parts of the country. For this particular census, we're going to be releasing all of the geographic data at one time, which I think is a great feat because, again, a lot of data users want to see that information. They want to see what's going on in their particular state. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing for this particular one. Now, for the next few slides, I'm going to talk about, again, some of the additional data tools that we have at Census that also, again, help as supplements to the economic census. One of those surveys is called the Annual Business Survey. And this was something that I put together for this particular presentation. The Annual Business Survey is a measure of demographic characteristics of business owners, including minorities, veteran-owned, and woman-owned. Now, this is a quick snapshot of 2020 data, which is reference year 2019, where the Annual Business Survey estimated over 750,000 employer firms in California, employing over 15 million employees with a total annual payroll of $1 trillion. So we also see that those employer firms had approximately 250 plus thousand employer owned firms that were owned by minorities. Of those employer owned firms, we saw that were 31,000 plus that were owned by veterans. And then here I was just a breakdown of some of the higher industries. So we saw professional, scientific, and technical services. We saw the largest in construction, and then we also saw a large swath in healthcare and social assistance. So again, this is one of the surveys that we released, the Annual Business Survey, which again is one of our more prominent surveys because again, it speaks to the demographic nature of the business owner of employer-owned firms. So for the next few slides, I'm going to discuss some of the tools. Actually, I'll pause. I can't see the chat if there are any questions. You all let me know, but I'll pause now to see if there are any questions before I move on to some of our data tools.
No, we don't have any questions yet.
Okay, great. So data.census.gov is one of our newer platforms designed to access and consolidate many of our demographic and economic data from the U.S. Census Bureau. Again, the vision of this particular tool is to incorporate all of these different data sets. So if you say, I'm looking for demographic information in Los Angeles County over this time period, this tool will then pull in all of the different data tools or surveys where we're collecting information to, again, create a better user experience and create more centralized data sources for you to find information. Another tool, ironically, that actually comes out of my area is the Census Business Builder. Now, the Census Business Builder is a dynamic online tool that combines both demographic and economic data from multiple census surveys, and then it overlays that data on an interactive map. So as you can see here, just by this screenshot, that gives you menus, it gives you an interactive map to browse, customizable dashboards. It allows you to create and to upload shape files. It allows you to create a shape around a particular region that you want to view. And also it allows you to change this information beyond just a visual layout into a report as well. One of the reasons we created this tool is many small businesses reach out to the Census Bureau when sometimes they're looking to develop a grant proposal, looking for a business loan. They're looking for, okay, what are the demographics in my area? Are there other businesses like my business in this particular area, so I can determine where can I be competitive. So a lot of times this information is pulled from the U.S. Census Bureau. So if you can see here in this snapshot, I actually looked up the number of restaurants in Los Angeles County. And not only did I pull the total population, if you can read across the top screen, if you can see that, I have the total population. And then I'm also able to select multiple variables. So you see that where it says second, I also was curious about, so for a number of restaurants in Los Angeles County, I also want to know the number of employment by employers in Los Angeles County for restaurants. So if I look down here at the bottom left of this image, I see one, the estimated population is a little over 10 million. But then I see that the total number of employees for restaurants is over 180,000 individuals. I also see here in the middle of the screen, I can see the median household income. I see percentage of high school graduation rates. I see also, if I was looking at restaurants, I see that there are approximately 8,500 employer-owned restaurants in Los Angeles County. And then another variable I see is also home ownership. So what this tool does is it takes all the different information from both the American Community Survey and many of our business tools, and it puts all the information into an interactive map. I'm even able to dial into a deeper level of detail where I can get down to the county level. I can go, if you see to the top left, right below where it says restaurants, you see where the map is at state, metro, county. I can then go down further into the city level. I can even go down into the zip code level and including the track level. So if I'm a person looking to open a restaurant and I want to find out how many people live in the area, what's the median income, I can find that information out so I can determine what's the best place for me to possibly open my business. So this has been a great tool combining all of those features together. Another thing that I wanted to mention as well, earlier I talked about our high frequency surveys that have been a valuable resource to data users for different types of industries. Because again, things that we hear is, hey, the annual data is great. It shows me trend information, but I also just want to get more information more timely. So that is, again, going back to our high frequency surveys. The Business Trends and Outlook survey, I had previously mentioned the Small Business Pulse survey, which measured the impact of COVID on small businesses during the pandemic. We have now expanded that into now the Business Trends and Outlook survey, which measures the impact of changing business conditions as it relates to natural disasters, not national disasters, natural disasters, economic crises that are affecting our nation's small business. So initially, the Small Business Pulse was strictly looking at COVID's impact. We've expanded that now to look at different types of impacts on our small businesses. And again, another high frequency survey that comes out on a bi-weekly basis. Another survey is our Household Pulse, which takes the same type or took the same type of effect, but it measured the impact of COVID on households, where the small business measured the impact on businesses. Another high frequency survey is the business formation statistics. Again, you want to find out what's going on with business applications, as we refer to businesses' births and deaths. Again, information that we provide at the U.S. Census Bureau. So if you want to find out what's going on in particular areas, we provide that information as well. Another thing that we've been doing most recently are experimental data products, which are innovative statistical products created using new data sources or methodologies that, again, target and benefit data users in the absence of other relevant products. And in many cases, we're seeking the feedback from data users and stakeholders on the quality and usefulness of these products. The development of the experimental data is one important path that we use to create regularly occurring statistical products. So one of the things that we created through this process is monthly state retail sales. Again, we have a monthly indicator that is looking at the national numbers as it relates to monthly retail sales. But again, hearing feedback from data users, they were curious about, well, can I get that down to the state level to find out how much is being, how much state sales, retail sales are being occurring from my state. So that was something that we responded to based on feedback from data users. Same thing as the business dynamic statistics. Again, we wanted to find out about measures of business dynamics for exporters, those who are importers, importers and exporters. So again, number of establishments, how many are employed, births and deaths. Again, more valuable information that we have to measure the effectiveness or the nature of our economy. Another section that I want to highlight very quickly is the construction and residential data that we have at the U.S. Census Bureau. So we capture all different forms of information related to construction. We capture construction spending. We capture new residential sales. We capture new residential constructions. We capture information on building permits. We capture information on characteristics of new housing. So this is an interesting infographic. I think this is probably one of my favorites, is we took a home and then we highlighted it and we made it an infographic based on all the different elements that we capture as it relates to characteristics of a new housing. So you see square footage of a home, the exterior wall material, how was that built? How was the foundation built? Whether these were things that were added to a home or whether they were additions to a home. So again, this is all information. How many stories were there? Was it heating fuel? Was it a heating system? Were there outdoor features? So again, a lot of useful information that we're capturing at the U.S. Census Bureau, again, measuring all different forms of the economy. And the last thing I want to mention as it relates to construction is our construction re-engineering process. As we're looking to improve different ways that we are collecting data, we're in the process of looking at that through our construction process as well. As I mentioned building permits earlier, usually building permits are the most direct form to measuring new construction, but we realize purchasing or obtaining a building permit only means you are intending to build the building or build a new home. Doesn't necessarily mean you're actually going to build the home. So there is a bit of a gap there between the number of building permits issued and the number of buildings that are actually built, because there could be a gap between that process. So one of the things that we are doing, or we're looking to review this process, is a new design that would allow us to measure housing starts and completions using satellite imaging and machine learning. So if you can see here in the examples 1, 2, and 3, we see examples of pre-construction, maybe where ground is just being broken. We then see construction start, where now we see the foundation being laid. And then we also then start to see construction completions, where we see that a roof is then added. So these are some things that we're working through now. We're working with different regions in the country to do test cases to see if this is a feasible opportunity for us. So again, always looking to improve the products that we are releasing. All right, now the next few slides, I'm going to talk about what, again, we at the Census Bureau do as it relates to, again, economic data. And one of those elements of economic data is international trade. So we have a very expansive international trade program. We are the official source of the import-export trade figures. So if you're ever watching the news and you hear this is how much that was imported from Germany, this is what was exported to India, that's information coming from the United States Census Bureau. We oversee and interpret the foreign trade regulations, which set forth the requirements for parties in an export transaction. We maintain the automated export system, which is the data capture tool that companies and businesses report their export information. And then we compile and collect this information, and we release this information every month through the FT 900, which is formerly known as the U.S. International Trade in Goods and Services Report. So again, on a monthly basis, when you hear this information coming out, that's information that's coming from the U.S. Census Bureau. And when it comes to the frequency, we are about to enter the month of October. So we release data approximately 30 days from the statistical month. So we're about to release in October. We'll be releasing August data in October. So again, as we talked about the Economic Census, which is the foundation, every 5 years, we talk about annual programs. International trade data is coming out approximately 30 days after the statistical month. And a lot of businesses use this information to make decisions on possibly exporting to a new market. Because again, it's not a year old, it's not 2 years old, it's 30 days old. So you can businesses truly use this information to make data-driven decisions. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do for this presentation was just to do a quick pull of export trade data moving out of the port of Los Angeles. LA is obviously one of the largest ports of export in the United States. So of the top 3 countries the United States exported to from the port of Los Angeles in this year to date 2022, were to China, Japan, and South Korea. Of the top 5 products that were exported based on value were civilian aircraft, cotton, electronic integrated circuits, forms of diamonds, and then certain types of machines for manufacturing semiconductor devices. So these are the top products that are moving out of the port of Los Angeles. Now, on the flip side, we also capture that information on the import side as well. So again, taking a look at Los Angeles, the top 3 countries that were exporting to the United States through the port of Los Angeles for this particular year. Again, some of the same players: China, Vietnam, and Japan. The top 5 products that were imported through the port of Los Angeles were crude oil, portable digital. Now, what's interesting, I'll come back to this second item here. Portable digital automatic data processing machine. If I were there face to face, I would ask everybody if they could raise their hand. If anybody could tell me what that is, they would get like I'd give them a hand clap if they could explain what that is. But machine for reception, conversion, and transmission in wired or wireless network. That's a modem, basically. Parts and accessories for automatic data processing machines. And then we also have vehicles. So these are the largest particular products that we are receiving that are coming into the United States from the port of Los Angeles. If I could take a quick question, can anyone tell me what a portable digital automatic data processing machine is?
We have one guest from the chat. John says, is it cell phone?
Almost. But see, that's why that's such an interesting thing. What that is that's a laptop.
Oh,
That is how we define in the classification system, in the harmonized system, as a laptop. Now, what is very interesting, thank you very much for that answer. What is interesting, again, as a older gentleman myself, laptops and cell phones are almost becoming synonymous with each other, because cell phones are almost like small laptops. I mean, they have so much power, so much information. You can access so much information right there on your cell phone. But what is interesting is that is how it is defined in the classification system. However, there's one great thing that we do provide is a classification search engine. So if someone were to type in laptops, that classification number would come available. We have a learning search engine. So while the term laptop isn't in the classification system, if you were to do a search on laptop, that classification number would come up. But again, thank you very much for your guess. Because again, for years I've always thought that's been so bizarre. Like, why doesn't it just say laptop? But that's what it is. All right, so continuing with the international trade program, just want to mention just a few of the features that we have. We have a database, USA Trade Online, which takes all of this information. So again, if you want to do a deeper dive, if you want to say, well, hey, I don't want to just find out about Los Angeles, I want to find out about Long Beach, or not just Long Beach, I want to find out about San Francisco or San Diego, or what do we truck into Mexico. Again, this USA Trade Online database has all of that information, and it allows you to do any type of sort and searching on the information for imports and exports of trade data. And again, this is what many businesses use, because let's say I'm a manufacturer of, let's say, microphones, and I want to find out where are the top countries that are importing microphones. Well, maybe Mexico, Canada, and China are the top countries importing microphones from the United States. What USA Trade Online allows you to do is sort the data so you can see the largest emerging markets. So if I want to see over the last 6 months who were the top countries who had the highest growth rate for importing microphones, I then could use this tool to see that, hey, the newest markets for my microphones that I'm manufacturing are maybe Nigeria, India, and Brazil. That might be the market that I want to enter into because the other markets might be too saturated. So all this information is available on USA Trade Online. All this information is also available through the Census API, which allows you to download all the massive database of all this information to sort it until your heart's content. And then another tool that we developed here to the right called the Global Market Finder. It allows an entity or a business, um, other agencies use this as well to sometimes help some of their customers. We also work with local entities, Small Business Administration. We work with local export assistance centers, where now if they're trying to say, hey, I'm trying to find where microphones are exported to, I can use this tool to do a quick search on microphones, and then I can find out quickly where microphones are being exported around the world. So again, these are different tools that we provide to businesses to help them make more informed decisions. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss, and then again, I'll open it up for questions, is one of our final tools that I want to highlight as we talk more about data equity. Um, Again, we hear about data equity, we hear about underserved communities. One of the things that the Census Bureau does is we have a lot of tools as it relates to data equity. We have a lot of tools as it relates to individuals and households and equity. And ironically, as someone said, hey, that's both a good and a bad thing because you've got a lot of tools. So the same comment we heard was, you've got a lot of tools. So both that was a compliment and a recommendation of, you've got a lot of tools. Can you consolidate that? And one of the things that we did with that process is we developed a tool called My Community Explorer, which combines both selected demographic, business, and resiliency data to help users identify potentially underserved areas in their state, county, and community. Now, when we're talking about resilience data, we're talking about data that measures if people are affected by a disaster or some type of hardship, how resilient are they to respond or withstand that? And some of those data elements that we look at are households that are below the poverty level, households that are without a vehicle, households that also have one person with a disability. So one of the things here that you'll see with this screenshot is when you first go to the tool, you will see that it starts at the national level. So it shows the total population, shows the entire nation below the poverty level, with a vehicle, without a vehicle, those that have access to broadband. But one of the nice features with this tool, as I'm showing here on the next slide, is you're then able to dive in deeper to get more information about a particular area. Again, you can start to go down to the state level, you can go into metro levels, you can even go down into the county level to find out different risk factors that a particular area might be having. So one of the things that I did for this presentation was I took a screenshot and I said, well, let me take a look at California. So as you see now, it's zoomed into California. Then you'll see here to the right, approximately 13 million households, approximate population of 39 million. And then it shows the resilience estimates. Approximately 20% of the estimated population have 3 of these risk factors. Then I look down below, and again, it's pulling information from the American Community Survey. Those that are below the poverty level, those that have at least one disability within the household, those that have at least those are without a vehicle, and then also those who have access to broadband. So this again is now compiling more information about how an area can be resilient to a particular to a particular I didn't want to say tragedy, to a particular natural disaster, to any type of impact. Now on this screen is what I did. I, again, burrowing down deeper, I took a look at Los Angeles, California. And what I wanted to do is now I can start to take a look at the business data. So if you see here on this slide, got a lot of information here at the top. Got the income equality, got households below the income, households that are below 75,000, and then I've got different graphs. But if you see here towards the bottom of the screen, if you can see the interactive map to the left. I can then look at an economic program profile of the area. I can also look at the social economic, the social characteristics, and then also look at race and ethnicity. So again, once I start to narrow down my search, I can then get more information about a particular area. So one of the things that's interesting here is we talk about income equality. As that number gets closer to 1, it means that everyone is closer to income equality. But one of the things that you have to be mindful of that number is if everyone is not making a lot of money, then while the income equality might be a high number, what the income is may end up being a small amount. So again, that's just a context of what that number actually means. So again, just wanted to highlight this tool as again another feature that we have at the Census Bureau. So we're talking about equity, we've got international trade, we've got demographics of business owners. Again, all of that buffered around the economic census, which is our cornerstone um, product that comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, particularly from the economic area. So I am at the end of my presentation. I will now open it up for questions. My contact information is here on the screen. So if anyone does have any questions following this presentation, or maybe you have something really detailed, feel free to shoot me an email. I can certainly follow up with you there. My team is at the email at the bottom, ewd.outreach@census.gov, and their 1-800 number as well. So if there was anything that I discussed that you'd like further detail, feel free to reach out to myself or any of my team members to assist you, especially with any of the tools. So if, and then I'll pause after this. If anyone has any questions about any of the tools that I mentioned that I was only able to discuss very briefly, my staff does a lot of webinars. We do a lot of hands-on training. If there were any tools that we discussed that you would like just more information and I just wasn't able to really get into them enough, we can certainly make ourselves available for that type of training. So now I will pause and see if there are any questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Very great presentation. I definitely learned a lot. So our first question is, what are the key difference, pro or con, between CBB and on the map?
Oh, great question. So on the map on the map is another tool that focuses on looking at emergency management elements where on the map has dynamic information. So we just, oh, I can't, Fiona. We just had a hurricane move through Puerto Rico, Fiona. On the map will actually show you that trajectory of the hurricane. And it will also show you impacts of natural disasters such as forest fires. There are also elements where you can now highlight different forest fires that are going on in the country as well. Then what we've done, and as I have done this myself, I will then go to CBB and then I will pull out some of the data from CBB based on the track or trajectory that on the map identifies. So if I see on the map is identifying a particular county, let's say where fires have broken out, I would then go to CBB, pull out some of that information, generate reports based on those counties that might be affected. That's an excellent question.
Thank you. And if anybody else have a question, please put it in the chat and so that we can answer that. And I actually have a question about the econ census. So you mentioned several level of geography that the data are available, like state, county, and city.
Mm-hmm.
And what are like some other geography level that we can access the data, like the smallest geography level?
So the lowest geography that we get down to the econ census is at the county level. So we go national, metro, state, and then to the county level where we get that breakout. Because one of the things that's interesting when it comes to businesses, unlike people, is there may be a county that has only one supermarket. So we always have to be conscious of disclosure issues and confidentiality. So there are some cases where the level of detail for businesses can't get to the level of the census tract or the zip code tract, because in some cases there may only be one type of business in that particular entity. So that's why we go down to the level of county.
Yeah, totally get it. Thank you.
Yep. Great question though, because again, that's one of the things that we normally see is, I want to get down to that level so I can see what's in my county, what's in my state, and in some cases what's in my zip code. But again, to that point, in some cases we can't release at the zip code level because of just the concerns that I had mentioned.
Yeah, sure. I don't really see any other questions from the chat. So I think if anybody, any questions later, maybe you can just contact Mr. Wooden from the contact information he provided. Yeah, I think that may be all for today's roundtable session. And I hope I can see you all again next year. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all for the opportunity to share.
Oh,
Appreciate
sorry.
it.
One more question, I think. If one wanted to know what raw sources are being used in combination with the toxic release inventory, what would you recommend?
Could you repeat that question?
Yeah, if one wanted to know what raw resources are being used in combination with the toxic release inventory, what would you recommend?
The toxic release inventory. I'm not familiar with that.
Mhm.
So what I would recommend is feel free to shoot me an email.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with that release, but I can certainly, if it's something that we have any part of, I can certainly get you in touch with the person that might be able to answer that. But I'm not familiar with that release.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
Oh, it's from EPA. Yeah, so I'm not sure about that. I do not know. I know we have a lot of partnerships with other agencies, but I'm not familiar with that. So again, if you want, you could shoot me oh, great. You said just shoot me an email. Great. Because we can have a discussion with that. I could possibly reach out to some others to see if there's something that we work in conjunction with them to see if we provide any type of data to them for that particular release. Yep.
thank you. Yeah, and I don't see any other questions. So yeah, I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much, Mr. Wooden, for the presentation, and have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you all. You have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you.